You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Welcome back to the podcast, Rockstars. You know, COVID has really changed and shifted the way we all do business. You know, restrictions forced us to find creative new ways of serving the public, safely socially distancing, yet offering a creative individual experience that customers have come to appreciate. Well, that is certainly the future of this business. You know, it was a pivot that we all experienced, but now it's not just a trend, like it is a lasting new opportunity for you. So I'm really excited in this podcast to be featuring Tracy Christman from a company called Somfy that motorizes these outdoor structures. And I'm talking to Calvin Gray from Structure, who handles pergolas, and Phantom is a company with Jarrett Unger today, and we're going to be talking all about screens. There's all these opportunities to do these motorized outdoor spaces. We're talking rooftops, we're talking parking lots. Anywhere you've got a creative outdoor space, these folks can help us achieve that. So stay tuned to this episode. You know, I recently had a really amazing farm-to-table experience here on the coast of Maine, and it literally were a series of yurts outdoors, which was a curated tasting menu, 5-course tasting menu by a really creative, awesome chef. And we had a view of the farm and the fields and the crops and all that. And they had, you know, these screens that you could see out of. It was just a beautiful space, and it really triggered my imagination for what the future holds for this restaurant business. You know, customers have come, our guests, I should say, have come to expect, you know, not just food and drink, but an experience. And here's a way that we can offer them an experience. So stay tuned to this episode. It's going to be a good one. Rockstars, let me tell you about 7 Shifts. 7 Shifts is a modern labor management platform designed for restaurateurs, by restaurateurs. Effective labor management is more important than ever to maximize profit and success, especially now as restaurants begin to reopen and expand their teams. Trusted by over 500,000 restaurant professionals, 7 Shifts gives you the tools you need to simplify scheduling, easily manage time and attendance, communicate with your team, and retain your talent. Best of all, 7 Shifts integrates with the POS and payroll systems you already use and trust, turning your team into a competitive advantage to your business. Right now, Restaurant Rockstars listeners can get 3 months absolutely free. Get started now at 7shifts.com/restaurant rockstars. That's the number 7, SHIFTS.com/restaurant rockstars to get 3 months of industry leading labor management for free. Now, on with the episode. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. As you all know, these are engaging topics that help restaurants build their brands, rock their profits, and deliver amazing guest service experiences. And that is certainly the topic of today's episode. With me today, Ms. Tracy Christman from a company called Somfy. I'm also with Calvin Gray from Structure, as well as Jarrett Unger from Phantom. Now, the relevance of this discussion is all about the pandemic and how it made, you know, based on restrictions of all the states and governments, made limited seating a reality. And now these companies have these structures and pergolas and screens that are motorized and technology driven that have now created a whole new opportunity for restaurants as we emerge from the pandemic. So that's what the conversation is about today. And I really thank Tracy, Jarrett, and Calvin for joining us. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Well, fantastic. Let's start with backstory. My audience always knows that, you know, my guests usually have some sort of hospitality connection, whether it started as, you know, in teen years, how their careers progressed, and how they ended up doing what they're doing now. Tracy, would you like to start?
Sure. My hospitality experience is somewhat limited. It does go back to my teen years as a snack bar attendant at the local swim club. But certainly throughout my career and such, you know, the spirit of hospitality is always there. So when we're working with customers or clients, and no matter what their requests are from a marketing perspective and product. We're always there to support and provide the experiences that they need at the right level. So
excellent. Well, hospitality is really the foundation of this business. So it really helps when we work in the industry to have that, that guest perspective in mind. It really drives everything we do. It drives the innovation. It drives the solutions for the operators and so many other, areas that impact the guest experience. So thanks for offering that. Sure. Jarrett, Calvin, who wants to jump in next?
Sure, I can speak to my background. So like Tracy, my background in hospitality was in my teenage years. I worked with McDonald's for, I bet you it was about 4 years throughout high school, and I was hopeless on the grill. As those high volume orders started coming in, I think I probably came to tears a few times. So very quickly, I was moved out to, they called it lobby, host lobby. And so I loved that part of it. A lot of it was cleanup, of course, but it was hosting parties and gatherings. And even though I think a lot of folks think of McDonald's as fast food, getting in, getting out, my job was to keep people there if they were having a special party. So it was all about hospitality. And that certainly has now extended into a lot of the areas that I work in on the customer service side of our industry and retractable screens.
Fantastic. Thanks, Calvin. Why don't you finish up on?
Freshman year of college, I waited tables for 6 months very poorly. Great personality, but I wasn't great at waiting tables. Realized it wasn't my forte, but it was a great foundational thing for being able to interact with people. And of course, on my sales team, I worked directly with a guy that was food and beverage director for Hilton. So he brought me up to speed very quickly on what that world's like. And I think it's helped us a great deal in terms of being able to fulfill the needs of people in the hospitality industry.
Fantastic. Well, everyone listening to this podcast knows that this is a very dynamic, ever-changing industry. And I've been in lots of different businesses over many decades. And this is by far one of the most, if not the most challenging business that I've ever been in. And then all of a sudden, the pandemic comes along in 2020, hits everyone like a ton of bricks. And those that were resilient and resourceful had to immediately pivot and make changes and meet the guests' needs, desires. Safety and convenience became hugely important. And what you do seems to be a tremendous, not only opportunity to help save these businesses during the worst of the pandemic, but now it's definitely, I wouldn't call it a trend because I think this has staying power long into the future. Let's talk about your different companies and how business was pre-pandemic versus then the pandemic hits and then you get crushed. I mean, how long have you been all operating with your different companies?
Well, I can start with that question. So Phantom Screens, we specialize in retractable insect, solar, privacy, as well as climate control screens. So they come down when you need them and retract out of sight when you don't. And what we saw with the pandemic actually was an immediate upswing in demand. Everybody was moving toward wanting to have more outdoor spaces, obviously to extend, revenue space as best as possible and as fast as possible. So we did see an immediate uptick, but we also saw this as really more an expedition, or I guess if that's the right word, but it was already a trend. People were already moving outside, wanting to move their indoor spaces to the outside, whether we're talking retail, commercial, or even residential. So this just expedited that. It made it that much more important now. And so we found, some restaurants were rushing and clamoring to make that happen very quickly. But what was interesting is we also found some of the more established restaurants looking ahead. I mean, they could see that the pandemic's not going to be forever. So this is actually an opportunity right now for us to expand outdoors like we were always planning to, and get ready for what comes after the pandemic. Because there is the whole idea that even when this is done, people are still going to be nervous. And this might actually be a cultural shift, not just a temporary shift in terms of wanting more clean air space and all those things around them. So that's kind of a quick synopsis of what we saw from a sector perspective.
Jarrett, let me ask you, were you staffed up to handle this incredible demand that just literally came out of nowhere? Did you have to staff up? Did you have to add production capacity? Do you manufacture things in-house? Do you outsource certain things? Tell me about all that.
Sure. So we did have to staff up. We're used to it though. We have to staff up every year in our production area because being insect screens and solar shades although it can be put in year round, it's something that generally folks don't really think about until the spring weather starts to arrive. So on a production side, we certainly had to staff up. From an installation side though, so we install our product across North America, and we provide that service, and that's done through a distributor network. And so we already had that in place, thankfully. So as installation demand started to pick up, we already had our partners in each major market area to handle that demand. They had to staff up, I'm sure, get more installation crew in play there. But we were able to respond to that need in relatively short order, thankfully.
Calvin, how about you?
I echo everything that Jarrett said. I mean, it's exactly it. We were already on an upward trend in hospitality and restaurants, and our product is a great fit. I think both our products are a great fit for the industry. And I think we had a little bit of a lull when the pandemic was first announced. Everybody went nuts, and everything kind of died for 45 days. And then shortly thereafter, there was this kind of emergence of business that everybody figured out. We need to react, respond, and pivot and come up with a solution. And now it's just a matter of how quickly we can get to people, right? Jarrett hit the nail on the head. It's all about how quick can you get this product installed so we can get this space opened up. We've worked with some restaurants that literally couldn't open their doors until the outdoor space was figured out. So we fast-tracked these jobs as quickly as we could, knowing they were kind of clinging to our solution to be able to get back open. So things have stayed steady, and it's really now just a matter of making sure we have the appropriate manpower on the back end to be able to build the jobs quick enough, because the labor part of it was really our biggest challenge. The work's there. We just want to make sure that we have the right people to be able to do it as quickly as possible. So.
Thank you, Calvin. Tracy, let's talk about your company and how you've coordinated, with Structure and Phantom. And have you all been working together for a long time? Because obviously each of the pieces come together, and the different solutions obviously require motorization. Tell us about that, as well as, your challenges when this whole thing hit.
Sure.
And that sort of thing.
Yeah, so yes, Somfy and Structure and Phantom were longtime partners, so we're very familiar with each other. Great partners to work with, and Somfy's been around for more than 50 years, manufacturing tubular and different motorization systems for products such as the exterior screens that we're talking about, pergolas, the louvers, and such. And we experienced very similar to as Jarrett and Calvin explained, right as the pandemic hit, it was, everyone kind of locked down, and we saw demand really decline. And we provide products also for the interior space. So for restaurants, there's, the interior window covering side too. But we saw people not wanting to get in the home, but as Jarrett explained, go outside. So our shift in, production of making more of the motorization solutions for exterior products really was something that we adhered to, although some of them are cross-functional platforms. So that was good. But yeah, certainly we see a huge increase, especially with these exterior solutions as well. So we are the company that's providing the components and the technology to make those screens go up and down, and those louvers open and close, and do all that fun stuff with different sensors and things as well. So
I would imagine that you service multiple industries, not just restaurants. This is, of course, a restaurant podcast, and I guess I'm assuming that restaurants would probably make up a huge amount of your business. But what other industries need these products?
Well, from Somfy's perspective, we make the products that go inside of the end result. So whether it's a screen or a pergola, interior window covering, awning, etc. Really, it's then up to the manufacturer and the distribution network to see where they sell. And I'm sure Jarrett and Calvin can shed some light on where they also have the experience in the distribution there.
Yeah, please do. Please share.
I was going to say, anyone looking to capitalize on outdoor space is the answer, which is, both residentially and commercially, both markets have boomed. The pandemic forced everyone home to work. And so everyone was looking for 300, 400, 500 square feet of new space for their outdoor space for a home. But we really run the full gambit. restaurants, hospitality, country clubs, you name it. Everyone is looking to enhance that space, take this space that can't be used very frequently because of weather conditions. And we're in the outdoor comfort business at the end of the day. We're about creating space that's functional and usable 365 days a year in virtually any weather condition. And I know Jarrett's up in Canada, so he's got challenges that I don't have. I'm down in Florida, so we're both like the dark side of the moon here. Jarrett, I'll let you take it from there.
Sure. Yeah. No, I actually echo what Tracy and Calvin shared. So the restaurant industry, of course, is very important to us. Hotel and event venues where they're going to be using indoor and outdoor spaces or a combination thereof, when they want to expand, even open up an indoor space to the outdoor space so they can even double or triple that space where they're going to be doing some kind of an event or wine tastings, whatever the case may be. And residential is massive for us. And that's something that's been interesting, is to see how it seems like both the restaurant and the residential sector are kind of borrowing ideas from each other. It seems like restaurants are trying to feel a little more residential in a lot of the amenities that they're starting to add. And homes are looking at, well, what does an amazing restaurant kitchen look like, and how do I mimic that? So that's where we see a lot of kind of pairing, I guess, in terms of what we're doing on both sides of the industry. One thing I wanted to mention, because I wasn't sure if we had made it super clear yet, but when you combine the structure outdoor pergolas that have the movable roof louvers that open and close, you're basically to the open sky, the phantom retractable screens that in essence are the retractable walls, for lack of a better term, and then the Somfy motors and controls that control everything, we basically create an outdoor enclosure that can be fully opened or partially closed or fully closed. And that's what delivers that 4-season, any kind of weather condition outdoor space, so that you can use it all year round, regardless of what's happening outside. Yeah, so I just want to make sure that we were clear on that part of it.
I had a wonderful experience a couple of weeks ago that was just so unique. And I see this as a marketing hook and an additional profit center in many operations. So this was a farm to table place, and it was actually at a farm. And you'd pull into this farm in, close to the coast of Maine. And obviously the fields are there, and they're growing fresh flowers, and they're growing vegetables and all that sort of thing. They had a market where you could walk into the market and buy fresh produce and things off the farm itself. They were making fresh sandwiches. And that was like the primary business model until the pandemic hit. And now they had 6 or 7 sort of, structures, as you're describing, that had screens. And I wouldn't say that I noticed that the roofs would open, but what an interesting situation to create an exclusive experience where a customer comes in and gets a curated dining experience with a personal server that comes in and takes care of your every need. And this was a 5-course tasting menu. It was not inexpensive, but the experience delivered was extraordinary, And now you folks are offering these types of structures that can then create that sort of an ambiance, that sort of I don't need to say upscale, because it doesn't need to be upscale, but you can certainly charge for the experience. And I do see that as a marketing hook. So I think what you're doing is awesome. And I experienced something similar firsthand not so long ago. Now, research shows actually that, adding outdoor patios or these structures can actually increase gross profits by 65%. Would that be accurate to say?
Well, yeah, that's the feedback that we've received. In fact, I can give you a specific project example. I don't know what their percentage increase was in revenue, but I do know what the dollar amount was. So up in the Pacific Northwest, where I'm located, there is a restaurant that basically extended their outdoor space by adding retractable screens and some of the features that we've talked about. And it was only 12 tables. So it wasn't like a massive patio, but it was 12 tables. And because we're in the Pacific Northwest, we do get that cold, rainy winter where folks don't really want to be outside. But by adding the features that we're talking about today, they were able to use that outdoor space, those 12 tables, during the winter and fall when generally you wouldn't be outside. And that amounted to, I think they said $2,000 to $3,000 in revenue per day, in addition to what they normally were used to without having that space. And I think when you took the whole winter into effect, that was a $300,000 revenue increase, thanks to 12 extra tables in that outdoor space. So there's huge wins, I think, from a revenue perspective by extending those outdoor spaces. There's also a biophilic part to it. I guess that's more salutary, but we talk about biophilia, that natural inclination that human beings have in wanting to be connected to the living organisms around them. And what that means in retail, and that includes restaurant, is when people have more exposure to the natural daylight, the sights and sounds of the outdoors, the fresh air, they're healthier and they spend more money.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, there's actually I think it's called the Heshang Mahon group. They're a research group that have done tests on that, and they've found that exact factor, that when people are exposed to the pleasant outdoor elements, they spend more money. There's more revenue from that side of it too.
Thanks for touching on that. That brings to mind the most successful retailers in this country, if not around the world, have dialed in the fact that certain types of music, certain types of fragrances that are piped into these spaces actually keep people in the retail location longer, spending more money. So what you're talking about absolutely adds to that whole, biophilia, I think is the term that you use, but it's adding to that whole new experience. People are spending more, people are enjoying more, people are leaving better online reviews because they're now receiving experiences where before perhaps they were just going in and having food and drink, but there wasn't necessarily anything extraordinary about the experience. And now you're adding that whole dimension. So I'm a huge fan of that idea.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about current trends right now. There's so many different spaces, and we've all seen, cities and, even rural locations that suddenly with the dining restrictions, okay, you can only have, 6-10 foot distances between tables and capacities were cut in half. And now cities, I'm close to Portland, Maine, and we saw a lot of streets closed down by the city mayor because, okay, now we're going to create outdoor dining spaces. And now the cars aren't allowed. And now, we can distance, but now these structures are going up and those structures are still there. Sometimes there's sidewalks, sometimes they're parts of the streets, and the city has really reconfigured traffic just to make this all work, to keep the economy going, to keep people coming, tourists, visitors, all that sort of thing. So let's talk about, current trends. What are the hot spaces? What are you seeing happening? What type of structures are the most popular? You can all answer that question, but whoever would like to start.
Back to what Jared said, the hot trends, I think, are just basically utilizing much outdoor space as possible. We've been doing a lot of case studies lately where we go back and capture the post-installation information from these people, and they're just raving of the fact that this becomes the most popular place to sit. So once outdoor spaces was a spillover kind of place to put people, not necessarily everybody's fighting to sit outdoors. Now they're the most frequented spots, and everyone wants to sit out in the cool space outside. We're seeing that as well. I'm down in South Florida, so we see that a lot of the outdoor space that was once prohibited for them to be upon, now they've mandated that they can use this space permanently, because I think everybody's looking at the long vision for this. This is not just the pandemic, but I think that we're realizing that the long play here is that these spaces are going to become the place everybody wants to sit and be. We just have to make them comfortable, as I touched on earlier, we're in the outdoor comfort business, and people will thrive to be in these spaces to the extent that we can make them more comfortable. And that's what we do as a team.
Thank you for adding that. Tracy, I believe the motorization piece really adds to that outdoor experience, the comfort level, that Jarrett and Calvin were just speaking of. And two experiences come to mind. I keep bringing my own experiences into this, and I haven't seen all of these structures that I've seen actually be motorized and have these features. So that, of course, is an added benefit. When I was a kid growing up, there was a house in my neighborhood that had an indoor swimming pool, and they actually had a motorized retractable roof. So when the weather was nice, the roof would open, and when the weather was raining, and the kids could still go swimming. And that always blew me away as an 8-year-old seeing that. And then the same thing, I believe going on a Caribbean cruise with my parents so long ago, there was a cruise ship that had the very same thing. They had this giant Olympic-sized swimming pool right on top of the ship, and it had this motorized roof that would open up. And if the weather became inclement for whatever reason, obviously it would shut down, and the pool never shut down. And now these structures are doing very similar things thanks to the motorization piece. Let's talk a little bit about, let's give the audience a sort of understanding or feel for the variety of structures and features that are actually available, from soup to nuts. I mean, you can go really crazy if your budget is unlimited, but you can do a lot on a limited budget and everything in between, I'm assuming. Please tell us what is available, and based on budget, what types of structures are offered, and screens, pergolas, all that sort of thing, motorized versus not. If you can take us there, that'd be really helpful.
Sure, I can start off on that one. Yeah, sky's the limit as far as possibilities, and that does come down to budget. I guess I would start at more of the sort of entry level, and that's a lot of it's going to depend on square footage, of course, and how big the space is. On the retractable screen side, coming from the Phantom Screens side of things, generally when you're looking at insect mesh, which is allowing a lot of air circulation, but keeping, of course, the bugs and the pests out of the dining space or the space where the food is being prepared. Those would be more of the more affordable screen products. And then as you start to get into more of the denser material, the price starts to go up a little bit, not astronomically, but it does start to go up a bit. So there I'm talking about solar shades, where you're starting now to keep the space cool with solar shading, or the reverse in the evenings. If it's cool outside, the solar shades can help retain some of that heat. So that's a little bit more. And then the top end would be clear vinyl. And clear vinyl basically is creating a complete enclosure when those are lowered. So when we talk about pricing, recessed screens, that's where the screens are actually integrated into the structure itself, is probably the most affordable with a partner like Structure Outdoor, because they've already created all of the beam chases and the componentry that can hide our screens out of sight. If it's on an existing building, then of course we need to integrate it into the framing, and there could be some carpentry costs and some of those things associated. In terms of giving you kind of a rough ballpark, if I was looking at a screen that, say, was about, let's say, 16 feet wide and by about 10, 12 feet tall, you're probably starting at least about $3,000, $3,500, including the installation. And so then you can expand that by the square footage, right? Of course, if it's a really big project, there's project pricing that applies when you get to a certain level of economies of scale. But that would kind of give a ballpark for someone to kind of think about is, okay, roughly, if I'm about a 16-foot linear starting perimeter, I'm probably starting at about $3,000, $3,500 for the product and the installation.
All right. Calvin, will you add to that?
Yeah, I think that the restaurant projects that we do nationally, I think we try to do two things. One, we try to match existing architecture as much as possible. That's one of the first things we do, obviously with working within the budget. But we find that virtually every restaurant that we do, they want to go all in. They want to do our system as big as they can afford to do it. We want to do the matching screens, which is essential. You've got to have the motorized screens from Phantom on the side, because that puts it all together. That knocks down the wind. It creates solar shade. And again, they can use that even in a blowing rainstorm. If you choose the right mesh, right, we can drop the screens and knock down the blowing rain and wind. Lighting, fans, to create, again, bad weather conditions, louvers close. Now we've got kind of a watertight roof overhead, and we've got the screens down. They can still function within that space. We're not moving people back indoors. Back to your prior question, I didn't think about this. We're actually going to be rolling out kind of an integrated audio system. That's going to be one of the new plays moving forward. We're working with a company out of Los Angeles we're fitting really high-end audio into our system so that it sounds amazing. And because we're an aluminum product, we don't want any kind of vibration to affect the sound. So we're trying to perfect this before we roll it out, and we think we've got it nailed down. But that'll be the next new thing. Again, just creating the ultimate space that people want to be in rather than being indoors.
And then just to add to what Calvin was saying, another trend is, in addition to the audio, is the lighting. So, setting the right atmosphere mood with even different colored lighting and different elements there is also a trend that we're seeing. And, the integration of all these different products, from the motorization to the fans, to the heater, to the audio, Somfy helps with that as well with our product offer and solutions. So we kind of bring it all together.
One thing we should mention too
ahead,
is
Jared,
is customization. So the three partners here today can provide a lot of customization. So when folks are looking, for example, at trying to match a unique building finish, well, we can probably do a powder coat that is going to match the finish, even wood grain. So there's a lot of customization that's available from a design perspective to make it look like it was always part of the restaurant. And another level of customization is really on how you control the system. Back to one of your questions earlier, we were talking about, what are some of the trends, and automation is huge right now. I think number one, because it saves a ton of labor. I think when I've gone to restaurants and the sun's starting to beat through, or it's changed, the sun angle's changing, I'm watching waiters run around moving, blinds up and down, and I've never done a calculation about, how much that would add up to
downtime,
annual labor,
for
but
sure.
I think it would be quite a bit. So automation, using Somfy's environmental sensors like sun sensors that will automatically drop the shades or change the louvers depending on what the sun is doing, wind sensors that will respond to wind, rain sensors that will respond to moisture levels, really addresses, I think that. And there's also kind of that no touch condition that we're all still dealing with right now. I don't want to touch things that other people have touched. And automation also deals with that, right? So that's a huge trend that we're seeing in the restaurant sector and across the industry as a whole.
And it allows the wait staff to do what they do best. They're not running around trying to look for remote controls and they do what they do. Let the automation from Somfy take care of all that stuff. So it's great.
That's a beautiful thing. All right. So I'm getting the sense that customization is huge. I'm really curious about the process, because we're going to give your URLs and how to contact your companies and all that sort of thing towards the end of the podcast. But I'm really curious about the process. And, I'm assuming, again, that there's a dedicated account representative that now works with a restaurant. And I'd like to know what that process is like, and how, does a restaurant sort of share photographs, video, their interior space, the exterior space that they wish to enhance, and then the account representative, the person that's working, representing your companies, will then work with that client to say, okay, your budget is this, and we want to match that woodwork or that architecture of that building, and the whole thing evolves from there. But is there also sort of pre-existing manufactured solutions that are just turnkey, out of the box? That's all I need. I'll press the button. It comes, I get it installed, that sort of thing. And I know this is a multifaceted question, but then, there are certain installation professionals that are perhaps needed, that need to work with the client to make sure that the end product delivered works as it should, looks as it should, fits the space, problem solves anything that may go wrong along the way. Let's talk about all that. I know that was a broad question.
Sure. Well, from a process perspective, kind of from beginning of a project to the end, both Phantom Screens and Structure, we're kind of the ones that are in front of the client, right? And Somfy makes it all possible. They power us.
Of course.
So when it comes to a project, we will work with either the restaurant operator or the restaurant owner. But some of the restaurant clients will work through their architect or their general contractor.
Right.
Either way, we've got the teams that will work with those individuals, look at their plans, start to provide some, high level ideas at the get-go in terms of, okay, this is how we could fit that space, or how we could help create that outdoor space. Here's the solutions that we can offer you. We'd ask questions about, some of their design goals. Are there certain things they want to match? Is there a certain look that they're going for? What's the big challenge that they're facing? Is it bugs? Is it solar? Is it a combination of everything? And from there, we'll start to put together a plan that will address that. There are, I guess, maybe more standard approaches, but the typical method is actually still custom. Even if it's a very quick process, the restaurant owner knows exactly what they want. We still will have, either a face-to-face or a Zoom call or a phone call to walk through those specific challenges and goals, and then create a solution that is going to address that. And then, fast forwarding to, okay, everything's decided, colors and products, the solutions, fabrics, and all those good things. That's then where we move ahead with an installation. And I don't want to speak for Calvin, but I'm going to jump ahead because we kind of do the same thing. Both our teams will end up on the job site and take care of all of the servicing, the setup, the programming, walking the client through. Here's how you use it. Here's how it operates. That full gamut.
Fantastic. Calvin, what would you add to that? That's wonderful to hear.
Well, we have two primary ways we work with people. We have a national dealer network, and if we have a dealer in that market that we find is suitable to handle that size job, and we'll work through them. If not, we have a corporate team which will work, can basically travel and help assist in bigger projects, which has allowed us to work with some big national chains that are more comfortable knowing that our corporate team's involved rather than working with a local dealer. Everything is about design. So we work through our design team first. We want to make sure we hit the mark on the design, and we come up with renderings. Once those are all signed off on and approved, then we can go into shop drawings, engineering, and getting the product into production. And again, we're all on site at that point to make sure that everything goes properly and everything's programmed properly. So the three of us have been working together for some time now, not just out there in the field, but even in, podcasts and getting this message out to various industries. And we're really elated to be able to work together. I think our products work seamlessly together. We need each other and we are better together. I think that's one thing that happens, but I think, again, we're trying to work within the framework of everybody's budget, but I think that most of the restaurants now are looking at the longer vision. And, I think that's the difference with the pandemic, is just making sure that they're saying, hey, listen, if I can create a unique space that people really rave about, then I'm going to be around a long time. And that's the difference, I think, in the mindset today.
Fantastic. Tracy, let's jump to you. I want to learn a little bit more about the motorized technology. I'd like to talk a little bit about the sensors and how complex they are. Maybe are these soundless pieces of equipment? Do they make any kind of hum noises, or is it literally you don't even know it's there, it just works? Do the guests have the opportunity to put a solar shade down because the sun is on? Do the staff have to deal with everything? I mean, is anything sort of automated so that the guest can control it? Tell us all that.
Sure. Yeah. I'm first going to piggyback of what Calvin said as far as, the fact that we've all been long-standing partners and our products really do work together. And Somfy has been working both with Structure and Phantom to make sure the automation is the right type of motorization system, the right type of sensors that work with their products. So leads to the fact that when the product is installed and it's there at the restaurant, it's going to work. Whether the owner operator wants to have that control, maybe they even have an iPad or something and they want the app control, that's possible. Maybe they want to give some of that control out to the staff or not. That's where we talked about some of the sensors, and the sensors they're really automatic. They sensor the weather conditions and react to what's programmed. If it's too sunny, the louvers can close completely. They can close a little bit. They can close not at all. So depending on where you are in the country, you'll probably want to adjust that. And of course, rain, they sense different moisture levels, and they'll be able to protect and secure that space so the diners can continue enjoying their meal outside. There's also various local controls, a simple press, handheld remote that could be used. There's switches that can be put on the wall. There's also voice activation controls. I'm not sure how well that work in a restaurant with the ambient noise, but that is certainly an option. As far as the motorization systems, Somfy has hundreds of different types of motors, from the from different level of noise as well. So some are super ultra quiet. You don't even know what's happening until you're looking at the screen moving up and down, to others that are a little bit maybe more robust because of the size of the shade and the power needed to make that happen. So really at Somfy, we say we can motorize virtually anything because of the breadth of what's available through our technology and offering, and which is why we've been really happy working with Phantom and Structure. They come to us with a new idea or something. We'll figure out how to get it motorized.
Sound's not necessarily a bad thing. It adds to the drama of what's happening, in certain cases. And, James Bond movies come to mind where this unique technology that is way ahead of its time shows up on the screen, and there's a sound that goes with it. So when you're in a dining experience, sometimes sound adds to that. So I don't think it's a negative if certain things make noise. I was just curious about that. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about lead times on, okay, I'm working with a designer. I've got my whole thing dialed start to finish. I know it's got to vary dramatically, but essentially, what am I looking at with some of your more popular solutions? Like how much time when I decide on this and now I want you guys start matching to my ambiance and you're coming up with a solution, how long before it's operable in the average case?
Sure. Well, what I would say, so we can give you lead time averages right now, but what I would say is the market's pretty unpredictable right now. Yes. So with aluminum, political issues going on with aluminum right now, and that's impacting supply. Pretty much every material you can think of, wood. I mean, everyone knows what's been going on with lumber.
Of course.
And that goes right into, even fabrics. It goes into the chips that are going into some of our technologies. Everything is impacted right now globally. So I would say plan ahead as best you can, because there's no guarantees on lead times given what's going on in the world right now. But today, I would say from purely the Phantom retractable screen side of things, we're probably at about a 6-week lead time, sometimes shorter. But I would say, think of it as 6 weeks from, okay, we've now know exactly what we're putting in, dimensions, everything, all that's been decided. Then that's manufacture, shipping and installation. I would say leave at least 6 weeks. But again, there's still some unpredictability in the sector. So the more you can plan ahead, the better. Yeah.
Excellent. Anyone
on the structure side? This is a permanent structure, so it has to be engineered and permitted. And now you're into different municipalities around the country. I mean, from big cities to small cities and so forth. So that's where it can vary greatly. Trying to pull a permit in Miami Beach versus or New York City versus trying to pull a permit in Omaha, Nebraska is a completely different scenario. But our material lead times are a little further back than we'd like right now, simply because of what Jared just said. There's various supply chain issues that come and go a little bit. We like to be able to go from contract to installation, ideally in about a 12-week window, which gives Phantom plenty of time to have their material to us when we need it. They're usually quicker to the dance, but again, we have to go through a myriad of inspections, sometimes foundation inspections, and all the way through to electrical inspections, because we're doing the full Monty. We're doing electrical. So we're on our permit, we're doing everything that needs to be done to be street legal, so to speak, in that particular municipality. So I echoed Jared's sentiment, which is, if you want to do it, get going. Invariably, for whatever reason, it seems like people know they want to do it and then wait to the last minute and they need it done yesterday. And we're put in this very tight box to try to meet those timetables. And it doesn't need to be that way. If I can say anything on this message, it doesn't need to be that way. Plan properly and we can get it done more easily.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've done multiple projects that have required either just code enforcement officers sign off or literally planning board committees that need to sign off on much bigger, constructions and all that sort of thing. So I'm quite certain that you have spec drawings and all the full information that a client can then take to their local municipality and say, okay, this is what I'm planning on doing. And they get sign off, and then it's off to the races and you guys start providing the solution. Let's talk about HVAC and how often that's needed, the air conditioning, the heating and all that, and how that integrates with the structures, with the motors, all that sort of thing. And that seems like a big piece to me. But again, climate dependent, depending on where you're at.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think one of the beauties of what we bring to the table is that we reduce the need for AC and those mechanical systems. If we just look at the solar side of it, you add solar shades, we can reduce the building heat gain from the sun by as much as anywhere between 65 to 90%, depending on the material and all the other conditions. So that's a lot of heavy lifting that our systems are doing to reduce the need to pump heat out of a building, right? We're already preventing the heat from coming in.
Awesome. Yep.
Of course, if you're using a more open weave, so you're using like an insect screen, for example, so that allows quite a bit of openness for air pass through. You're allowing a lot of fresh air into your outdoor space. And maybe one thing we didn't mention earlier is we also allow that opening of the indoor space to the outdoor space. So if you've got more of that fresh air coming from the outside to the indoor space without the pests and the bugs that you'd be worried about, again, that allows passive cooling and reduces the need for HVAC. You still need to have HVAC. You're just reducing the amount of time and energy that HVAC needs to be running. But then I'll probably let Kelvin speak to some of the air movement that's possible, with the structure system.
Yeah, in summer months, and it's hot everywhere this summer. It's matter of fact, Florida may be a little cooler than some of the other parts of the country right now. But when you angle the louvers and create shade, and you drop the solar screens, and you have motorized fans inside, if you move the air and you create shade and you allow the hot air to rise and get out of it, it's a very cool, comfortable space. We can integrate misting systems. There's some sophisticated misting systems if people want to go to that level. The only drawback to them is sometimes they're a little noisy, and sometimes they can create a little bit of obviously too much moisture in some cases. But oftentimes they're not needed anymore because one thing we love is the fact that you can angle the louvers, create shade, have some really nice functional fans in there, drop the screens. You still look up and see blue sky, but you're comfortable. And so to that end, I think we're fine. Now we get into the winter months, and we often incorporate things like, gas heaters, or, we can integrate heaters. There's a variety of different heaters, either infrared or gas heaters. But I'll let Jarrett speak to the cold weather because he's more of an expert on that.
Yeah, and I was just going to make one other comment on something Jarrett said about reducing the solar heat gain. And sure, you can have a solar screen to do that, but if it stays stationary and doesn't move, nothing's going to happen. So the motorization, guarantees that savings, whether it's because it's being put on a timer or a sensor. It just makes it possible to happen every time.
Cost efficiency is very important right now.
Absolutely. I think of it like a convertible. If I'm in Kelvin's area, I'm down south in Florida, and I'm driving a convertible, and it's 90 degrees, maybe even up to 100 degrees. If I'm on the highway or I'm in the country road or whatever, I feel great. It's fine. But if I get stuck in traffic, it sucks, right? Suddenly air's not moving, and now I feel hot. And the same thing is true with those outdoor spaces. By simply adding a fan and having that air moving, you're comfortable. I actually was at a party in Orlando a few years ago, and it probably was about 95, 100 degrees when we arrived. It was a very big home. It was more like a restaurant because it was quite something, and everything was sealed. But there was a breeze that started to come off the lake, probably around 6:30 in the evening. They opened all of their large opening glass wall systems, so the living room, the kitchen, and where drinks are being served was all open to the outdoors. They dropped the screens. They had the louvers for shading as well. And that just made everyone feel really comfortable. So even though it was still a relatively hot evening, people felt great, and they enjoyed that connection to the outside. So I think, that's that whole idea of movement is really something that's important that we bring to the table together. Yeah.
I think in short, we collectively have the ability to control the effect of weather.
Right.
I mean, moving screens up and down, manipulating the louvers, fans, putting all this together, we have the ability to control the effects of weather. We play off of what's good. If there's no breeze, then the screens can be open or down. But if we got a nice breeze and there's, open the screens, as you're getting that side breeze, create some shade, and all of a sudden you got a very comfortable space again. So we work in conjunction with each other to create beautiful music.
That's wonderful. So obviously the pandemic created a whole new situation, but you guys are obviously the heroes of the industry right now, based on the, allowing companies to continue with their pivots and with their new ambiances that's going to keep going. I think you're performing a tremendous service. Let's talk about some success stories. I'm sure you're getting testimonials all the time from satisfied clients. I'm sure you've had really, challenging situations, because every situation, every client is different. Can you each speak to what's happened? Give us a sort of a challenging situation that you solved, and now you got a raving fan for a client that's customers are just, their guests are having extraordinary experiences because of how you solved that particular challenge.
Sure. Well, I can start with one. I shared earlier about one of the restaurants in the Pacific Northwest and shared, their revenue success story. Mm-hmm. We had another a situation where we had a restaurant that it's in an area called Richmond in British Columbia, and it's right on sort of a port area, for lack of a better term, so open water. Mm-hmm. They've got a massive deck. It's beautiful. But when weather turns, or even it's decent weather, but when you're right on the ocean, it can be pretty chilly. They were having issues with customers not feeling so great, and they probably, if I remember correctly, at least 50% of their seating capacity was on the actual deck itself. And so their solution there was to go with retractable vinyl, to basically bring those vinyl, fabrics, for lack of a better term, down. They were all hidden away in the ceilings, and then they would lower on a track system between the posts, so that they could really cut down on that wind and keep that 50% of their seating capacity open throughout the course of the year. I don't have the revenue numbers from them specifically, but I know that's made a huge difference to the customer experience. And they also don't have to completely enclose the space either. Just taking some of the wind off, but allowing some of the breeze to still come through, really created the ideal scenario for them. And they can control that, any which way they choose, whether it's automated or whether it's with a remote or a wall switch.
Yeah, one that comes to mind for me is, again, in my backyard, is a restaurant called Le Jardiniere. It's a New York-based restaurant down in the Miami Design District. In the middle of the pandemic, they reached out to us and said, based on the seating requirements, there's no way we can justify opening the doors until we get this outdoor seating fixed. So they came to us kind of, hat in hand, and said, you've got to come through with us as quickly as possible. So we fast-tracked it. We got in, we designed it, we got an approval. We expedited everything, the permit process and so forth. We got structure to move heaven and earth, and we were able to get this done for them so they could get their doors open and get their staff back to working. And they were elated. As a matter of fact, I was down there not long ago, and they're still excited. But that's just one of many. Again, if on our website, if you go to our case studies, there's some restaurant testimonials on there where people talked about what it was like before the space was, enhanced, and what it was like after. And it's just, owners raving about the fact that this is their moneymaker now. This is their go-to space. And that's what makes us all do what we do. We love doing this. So
that's beautiful. There's definitely a passion that runs deep in this business, whether you're an owner, operator, or provider of services to restaurants. And it certainly sounds like you're all passionate about what you do, and you're solving a definitely necessary problem, and you're sort of, transforming the future of restaurants simultaneously. I think that's tremendous. All right, let's talk about anything I may have missed. Do you want to offer anything that you'd each like to talk about, your companies, about the technology, about what you're offering?
Like I said, I'm excited about the audio integration. I think that was kind of the missing link. I think just having some really nice music playing in the background. I think it was the thing that we overlooked. We were so focused on just making sure we had the lights and and the movement of air proper and creating a functional space. But now we just want to go next level. What's the next things we can do? And back to what Jared said about biophilia, it's about bringing organic elements to the space as well. I mean, our product is all aluminum. Jared's product is basically screen and aluminum frame. And so we have these, materials that we deal with that allow us to do what we do. But I think that now we can start to look at some ways of softening up some of these spaces a little bit to make them enhance them even more. And I think that's one of the things I'm focused on is I think we all have a passion for design too. I know Jared and I talk about this all the time. So, we're trying to push our products to focus as well on how can we enhance design and space even more.
And the only thing I would add from the Somfy side is, of course, we've talked a lot about the exterior spaces and what we do to motorize and enhance those environments. But if there's a restaurant that also already has Somfy powered shades or blinds inside, they can control them all together with the exterior products too. So one control system, similar remote controls and such. So that can all be tied together. And it's not something we really touched on for here, but it is possible.
You touched on an app earlier, Tracy, that I guess what's going through my mind is I'm an owner of a restaurant and my staff isn't going to show up for another hour, but I think I last minute, it's like, I want to change the ambiance. Can I control anything remotely from my phone,
Sure.
even if my restaurant is, 10 miles away? Down
Absolutely.
the street, whatever.
So the app,
that's all possible.
It does just that.
That's
it gives you the
cool.
control anytime, anywhere, any place. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. Let me ask anyone or all of you if any of these solutions are either semi-permanent or portable. When I ran restaurants for decades, we were constantly reconfiguring our space, and we moved staircases, we moved stages for live entertainment. Stuff was always moving around, just because it was a better, efficient, more efficient way of doing things. Are any of these structures able to be moved if with limited deconstruction, you might say? I
would venture to say, think of it as permanent.
Think of it as permanent. Okay.
Yeah. Even from a warranty perspective, right? These our systems are coming with installation services for a good reason. A big part of it is, of course, we want to make sure that we're delivering optimum quality and delivering a great client experience. And that also means that we know we can guarantee what we're guaranteeing in our warranties because we're doing it. So as soon as other folks start trying to manipulate something, you start to maybe run into some warranty issues there. So at the very least, you don't want to disrupt your warranty. But yeah, I would think of it as more permanent as well. These are very durable systems that are designed to last for the life of the building itself. So I wouldn't think of it as being something that's portable and reconfigurable. We are great at coming back and making changes.
Okay.
So if someone does want to do a change, we absolutely will be happy to come and help out with the replanning of that. But don't think of it as like a tent or a marquee that you can just set up and take down. This is a much more permanent type system compared to that. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think to add what Jared said is that we have people sometimes that don't utilize all of the available outdoor space due to budget, and you can do phase 1, phase 2. So you may be able to add to the existing space. That's not a problem. Or you can also, in some cases with our product, you can add other design elements. You may want to go in and put on some cap and base or some things to dress it up even more. And that can be done after the fact. But the configurability is going to be inside the space. They can put in new furniture and make it look great inside, but our spaces are pretty permanent. Yes.
Something to keep in mind too, coming back to that permanent question there. There's the big thing that we're trying to do, of course, is to help restaurateurs offer an incredible experience for their patrons, right? For their customers. But when we talk about something that's more permanent, there are some benefits that can really help a restaurant operator as well. For example, there's the FDA food code. I think it's section 6 that talks about having a barrier between where there's pests and insects and where food is being prepared or where food is being served. If you have more of a permanent type solution, that's probably going to go over a bit better than a temporary type structure and dealing with some of those things. There's also certain cities or even states, municipalities that have certain energy codes or energy requirements, and a permanent structure, especially where there's automation involved, can help you meet that. I think of Title 24 in California, which is all about, the use of energy and how you stay economical, but also environmental. So having more of a permanent structure can really help with some of those practicalities in building design and meeting code.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. I'd like each of you to be able to provide the best way to contact each of your companies for more information. That could include URLs or, email addresses to get right in touch with. What's the best way for each of you, for our audience to find you?
Sure. So for Somfy, it's somfysystems.com. But in all honesty, we're going to send the person that contacts us directly to Phantom or to Structure, depending on what they're looking for, if it's, a pergola or a screen. So they certainly could come to our website to learn more about Somfy and our product offer. But when they're in that stage where they're looking to purchase and get that consultation, I would recommend they go directly to Phantom or Structure.
All right. Jarrett, why don't you give us the best way to contact your company?
Sure. So our website is phantomscreens.com, PH for Phantom. So you can find us easily on phantomscreens.com. And we also have a toll-free number. It's 1-888-PHANTOM, 1-888-PHANTOM.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. And Calvin, tell us about Structure. How can we contact you?
Absolutely. Just go to our website, which is Structure with an X, struxure.com. And everything that we need to know is there. Certainly the submission forms will get us down to the dealer network or our design team, and we can get the process moving quickly. So,
well, let me thank you all very much for sharing what you do and the benefit that you're offering our great industry as we emerge from the pandemic. Thanks so much for that. And thank you so much for being great guests on the Restaurant Rockstars podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate having us.
Thanks again to our sponsors of this episode, as well as our audience for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Guys, I've always believed in systems to run a really effective restaurant. They say you have a system if you can walk away and leave your place for a day, a week, or a month, and it's just as successful, just as profitable when you return, if not more so. Now, the staff are really the foundation of this, and it all comes down to the word empowerment. If you've got really great people, and if you can develop those people to have your back and to run it as if they owned it, treat everything as if they had to pay for it, that's a super powerful system. Once you have the staff in place, it really comes down to three things. It comes down to 1, staff training, development, recognition, and rewards to create what I call your dream team. How to empower your team to think and act like owners and to treat everything as if they owned it and had to pay for it. And to deliver amazing guest service experiences to your customers. To serve and sell, because sales are the lifeblood of your business. Not allowing order takers on the floor, but teaching everyone to recognize opportunities and make suggestions that we know the customers will enjoy and appreciate. It all comes down to training. Number 2, cost controls and maximizing profit. You need to know your critical financial numbers on a weekly basis, and it only takes 10 minutes, but you need to understand these things. How about your daily break even? How much it costs you to open the doors to your restaurant each day? Inventory is not just walking around and figuring out what your order is that week. It's knowing the true value of your goods on hand at any given point in time, and you need this information to be able to calculate your true food and beverage costs. Your labor costs are also important, and running a weekly labor analysis against sales. If you know these things, I can teach you how to maximize your profit and control your costs. And then number 3 is what I call marketing firepower and affinity. Affinity is defined as a really powerful sense of loyalty and belonging where your customers become raving fans and they're like an army of brand ambassadors spreading the word for your restaurant. Well, all of this is included in the Restaurant Rockstars Academy. If you really want to take your restaurant to the next level, post-pandemic, things are heating up, customers are coming back. Now's the time to really maximize your opportunities, maximize your sales and profits, and create that dream team staff. Check it out at restaurantrockstars.com. It's the Restaurant Rockstars Academy.
Guys, it's no secret that when I ran restaurants, I was really always looking for a new competitive advantage and hooks that really set our business apart from the competition. And this episode was certainly all about creating these amazing outdoor spaces that create buzz in the marketplace, that draw repeat business back to your restaurant, and that obviously leads to positive online reviews. You know, we all have a parking lot, we all have a rooftop perhaps, or an outdoor deck or a sidewalk. You know, we all have some sort of a space that we can look at in an entirely different and new way and see what is possible, what could go there, you know, what will really capture the visibility from the street and draw new people to my restaurant operation. So today's episode was really all about triggering that imagination. So thanks so much to Tracy and Calvin and Jarrett for bringing us this episode with Sumphy, Structure, and Phantom. Thanks also to our sponsors this week, 7 Shifts. And also, I hope that you leave us a review on iTunes. If you're really enjoying what you're hearing, we've been hearing from more and more of you. I appreciate the positive feedback that I've been getting. Please leave us a review on iTunes. It'll help others find us. And also, check out restaurantrockstars.com for some turnkey solutions to help you run a stronger, more profitable business. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.